Hey, this is Notser, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Ibuki. This is the Tier 9 Japanese cruiser, and the build is on the screen. So I have a 13 skill commander in this. I just chose not to skill one of my points. We got Priority Target, Expert Marksman, Superintendent Concealment, Adrenaline Rush. It's a typical 12-point commander for a Japanese cruiser. There's not much to tell about that one, but with the modules, one decision that we made, we went Concealment, but we also have Range Mod. Now, I don't know if you're seeing this on my screen, but man, the range mod, I had totally forgotten that the shell velocity was this slow. I'm more used to maybe the Italians or the French or the Soviets. I had thought that the velocity was better than it actually is on the Ibuki, but I was clearly misremembering. I was imagining range mod plus scout aircraft, and we would still be able to engage targets at 23, 22 kilometers, but ain't no way that's happening. But you know what is happening? A Notser. We just pulled Notser, and it played that lovely audio clip that everyone is so familiar with if you're watching my stream. And yes, I stream at twitch.tv/Notser, and we do grind up on islands a couple times. We smash directly into them. It's a common occurrence, and one that is honestly more humorous now because of the crashing sound that they've just, it's everywhere, obviously, since the audio adjustment 2 patches ago, I believe. So we pull a Notser, and it'll give us maybe a broadside on this Georgia, which I end up using my scout aircraft just so I can see over the island. A lot of times I'm trying to include that in my game because sometimes a player doesn't know exactly when to use their scout. What's a good time, Notser? I find that using the scout aircraft immediately when you find benefit from it is the best course. Holding out for something better normally doesn't net you the kind of impact you want. And if it's Georgia that's trying to hide behind an island, and if I use scout aircraft, I would get a bird's eye view. Or if it's a Smolensk in smoke, using that scout aircraft aggressively when you sense at least a salvo worth of damage you can send towards them works out more in my favor than not. So I just pull the trigger, and the Georgia pulled the trigger right back. We were stuck out, and I guess I could have held my fire and gotten that great concealment, which is a huge advantage. Don't get me wrong, but I don't have radar or the ability to cover enough distance, and boy do I try to spot that DD that happens to have better concealment than me. I end up most of the time not really using the outstanding 9.9 concealment on these guys. So, you know, it's just one of those things where you underestimate the tools that are available and you overestimate others, and it ends up being like, you know, my thoughts on a ship are sort of out of date, or my ideas of how a ship should be are not in line with the way I view the game now. That's maybe more accurate. But we're doing good damage. This Georgia, obviously, behind the island. We didn't take much damage, all things considered, being perfectly broadside, and I appreciate that, and partially because the Georgia only has 6 guns. So from near max range, it's going to be difficult for him to have those 6 shells hit near the target. Georgia is much better at a little bit closer because it minimizes the lack of gun situation. So I'm very happy with everything. We've captured A and B. Something is trying to contest it. The enemy team on the west side is so far back they might as well be in a different country. I don't like going after those people. This is how you bait yourself into losing. Notice that I have 3 or 4 friendlies on the west side of the map. They are not helping the team by pushing so hard to the north side that we are, you know, ignoring all the other objectives. And as I'm moving to the other side of the map to try and recover B or contest it or anything, the enemy Kagado moves away from A, and he moves right into range for a couple friendly DDs. Now, unfortunately, the friendly DDs decide to smoke out. Now, why do I say unfortunate? Well, it's because it's 2 DDs, and clearly the Kagado was 1, and the Georgia was isolated behind the island, and whatever's capturing B point is most likely out of position because they're not spotted by the friendly DDs who are outside the smoke. So what in essence happened is our teammates decided to screw themselves by denying line of sight and throwing away a 2 versus 1 advantage. You never want to throw away a clear advantage that's on your screen. And I know that might not be obvious for new players or even veteran players, but you need to take advantage of when a player is overextended. And the Kagero was overextended, and it didn't have backup. So does that mean that, for the rest of the game, it's a terrible player, horrible decision making? It could be one bad call. But that one bad call might lead to a cascade effect, and that's why you want to try and take advantage of the window when it's open. I don't know what the Asashio's doing. He seems to want to kill himself. He's sailing out of smoke into a tier 10 French DD Kleber, who is just chewing him up. And look who comes back. The Kagero, of all things, comes back and punishes. It turns a 1 versus 2 into a 3 versus 1. And it's all down to the decision making. It was just poor. It was just really poor. So I'm trying to, and we lose more friendlies. Great. 3 ship swing just like that. I send my torpedoes in an attempt to maybe screen or force an enemy DD to run into it or slow down to avoid. And that might leave B point open long enough that I can capture it. Remember, one of the advantages of the Japanese is their great concealment. They are right there with the Americans and the British on concealment, and they can just get right up to whatever objective and have minimal response from the enemy. And this definitely ends up being a good call. And once again, it's a window where I could have influence over the game that wasn't necessarily doing damage. I think damage dealing is incredibly overrated, and it's rampantly incorrectly associated with success. It don't matter if you're good or bad or your team's doing well or doing poor. You can rack up damage. That is not hard. What is difficult is reading the situation and taking advantage of big plays, like knocking out key targets, taking objectives, using your consumable in a way that assists you and your team in taking out a target when they thought that they had all of their bases covered. Just farming damage at range, that doesn't necessarily guarantee contribution. And I had this sort of back and forth on stream, but it's totally true. Anyone can do damage, win or lose, and there's no correlation between the amount of damage you do and the success of your team. I mean, many of the games where you get 300,000 damage, well, both sides had to fail really hard for that to happen. And even when both sides fail really hard, it's still up for debate. And wow, that was a slick shot right there. We fit it right in during the island when it was shorter, shallower, and I was really happy with that shot. The Georgia, obviously we've been working on him over the course of this game, and we just so happened to catch him as he was maybe not considering exactly the threat, and we just took advantage of that. So that was really happy thoughts for me. But you know what isn't happy? We've lost all of our DDs. There's currently a DD capturing A point, and I don't really see that stopping. So, you kind of feel very helpless, and the enemy is so far back from A, I can't even engage them. This is awkward. I just figure, you know what? The best thing I can do is contribute. If I can contribute my effort with the team where it's most strong, maybe we can work together to overcome more challenging obstacles. And one of those obstacles, trying to get some of these DDs out of the game, because man, the longer they're alive, the harder it is for us to actually win it. So what I end up doing is, obviously I'm detected, and I waited until I felt like, you know what, the Kagero has plainly seen me, the Vladivostok, and the Rune. I decide to use my Hydro in an attempt to predict that a potential torpedo might be coming. But we're forcing the issue on A because the enemy was so pulled back. If they were closer to the objective, obviously they could engage us and have more accurate shots that we just couldn't deal with. But because aggressively pushing forward, we actually got a nice little bonus. The Rune just barely caught sight of the enemy Kagero, where we get a little bit of damage. Kagero, of course, in response, sends torpedoes, and with Hydro, we should be able to easily fit ourselves right in a gap, and everyone around us sees these torpedoes. But as we're pushing, the Kagero, he has to retreat. And this is something I love to do. The DDs do not think that you have the balls to push them, but if you got Hydro, and I pretty much always do on my cruisers now that defensive AA is not really that helpful. They've sort of moved the AA power more to priority sector rather than defensive AA itself. Hydro's great. Hydro takes back all of that concern that a cruiser might have when approaching a DD. And the DD does not want to be body spotted or surface spotted. He wants to get the hell out of there. And that's exactly what he ended up doing. We just pushed him. We bullied him as a team, and we kind of bullied him into a bad position where he can't actually get outside of range. And this is great. Now, it will leave me vulnerable to the port side, the western side of the map, but I have to get this guy dead, and we cannot allow him to get outside of detection range. And he is trying so hard. Friendlies are finishing him off. We just barely miss out on the kill. But one DD down, sort of forcefully. One more to go. This enemy Vladivostok, a little disappointed, aren't you, Vladivostok? You're used to cruisers that you can see from 13 or 14 kilometers. You're not used to a cruiser being unspotted at 9.9 kilometers. We actually get super lucky. He can't see us. Although, one thing that isn't lucky is this butt torpedo situation that we have to deal with. But, you know, that's what the Japanese do. So I send my torpedoes, assuming that he's going to turn in and bow tank. And that's pretty much what he's doing. I'm turning away, trying to avoid the shells. And honestly, we did a pretty good job. I am very surprised with the amount of damage we took there, and I'm very happy. But we've got more cruisers opening up. I definitely feel like they need to take priority just because they are more obtainable, if that makes sense. So we unload a good HE salvo on the Seattle. We're going to load AP in. Now, this isn't Zao level good AP, but it could punish someone if they're broadside and man rune. You just pushed into death. He pushed a little too far, but I do, of course, appreciate it because the shells didn't go towards me. I'm still alive. Enemy Vladivostok not getting the shell hits. We do hit a torpedo, which is good. That does cause a flood. It'll probably force out damage control because people overreact still to flood. It does indeed that he overreacted to flood, and I'm cool with that. So I'm just going to retreat from these opponents because guess what? They are nowhere near the objectives. I am not going to play into their game. Why would I? My advantage is right here. I've got 2 bases. They only have 1. And if we engage the Vladivostok plus the friendlies, we probably are going to get a kill on this guy, and that's going to give us a point swing. So all I got to do is play smart. And to me, playing smart is making sure that the enemy that just wiped out everyone on the east side of the map, C side, they can't come in and take B for free. I think this is absolutely the call, and we'll see if this ends up working out. We are very far behind, though. I mean, this has been a pretty bad game, and Vladivostok, though, did a great job. This Vlad does a great job in this game. He has absolutely been a great player to help us out and try and win this game. But 1 kill does not come back. We still have to hold the 2 bases, and we have to not die. And there's 5 minutes left in the match. So, you know, I'm going, okay. Well, there's a Kremlin, maybe. Don't really want to fight the Kremlin. There's a Buffalo, which, all things considered, I wouldn't mind. And then there's a Bismarck. Now, the Bismarck is the one I would like to fight between the 2 Kremlins, but I think I could honestly take the Buffalo easy at the 2 Kremlins. The Kremlin and the Bismarck, the 2 battleships, sorry. But I have no idea what to expect. So I'm going to send torpedoes next to the island, assuming that the shortest distance between 2 points is going to be the path that the opponents take. It's not rocket science, and the Brindisi does a great job. He actually gets a kill on the Vladivostok, and we actually end up being in a great position. We are normalized on points, and we have 2 bases to the enemy's 1. So all we have to do is maintain 2 bases and not die, and do that for 4 minutes. Yeah, do that for 4 minutes. So what I decided to do, running into the Bismarck and then seeing where the Kremlin is, I am going to kite away from the Kremlin. I am going to make him attempt to capture B point. It seems that the enemy Buffalo is on the other side of the island, and that's a great situation because we are basically able to engage the Bismarck in a 1 versus 1, even though it's 1 versus 3. I am actively, deliberately keeping that island in between my ship and the Kremlin while he attempts to capture. And I'm taking distance and making it the opponent of the Buffalo. I mean, distance for any American heavy is awful to deal with, and especially when you are sailing directly away from him, he's not going to be in range much longer. And then he has to change the way he's playing it, and, you know, quite frankly, we've got 3 minutes. I don't know how much help he's going to be at this point because he just doesn't have the range of the gun velocity. But this Bismarck, he feels like, and you know, maybe rightfully so, that he has an advantage here. He's the battleship. I'm an Ibuki. And all he has to do is tank the damage. But I like these odds because I'm just really comfortable maneuvering and letting fires burn. So we get 2 fires on him. He does nick us for 4K. We do have a heal though. More incoming, so I do a harsher angle this time, and we dodge out of the way of that shell. These torpedoes are maybe if he turns in tight and uses the island. The enemy Kremlin, though, has captured B point. Now, as that has all gone on, we just assume that the Kremlin is trying to push into us. But the Kremlin is also hesitant, and I don't know why. I kind of feel like the Kremlin is overestimating the advantages that his team has. And I mean, I guess they do have clear advantages. They have 2 more ships than us, but the way they're playing, they're not taking advantage of the ship advantage. They are really allowing this a 50-50, and I will take a 50-50 down 2 ships and 1 capture point versus 2. Bismarck, though, pops out of the island. Doesn't seem to be afraid. We set another fire, which is nice. More incoming AP, which we're going to angle away and slow down. It does a wonderful job. It is very difficult to deal with a cruiser that is this nimble and moving away. And if I'm being critical of the Bismarck, it's not his aim. It's his choice to pursue. There's no reason for anyone who has an advantage to sail this deep into enemy territory. There's no reason for our teammates to die going up the western flank, and there's no reason for this Bismarck to be right here. All he had to do is recognize that, oh, okay, we got the base capture, and sail directly away, drag me into the Kremlin, drag me into the Buffalo, and I would have to retreat. As this stands, we still have a chance. Now, it's a slim chance. We got 30 seconds to kill this guy. He's got 10,000 life. But I'd rather have a chance than 0. And it would have been 0 if this player would have just retreated. And, oh, we get good damage, the double fire. We got about 20 seconds left. I don't think he's putting it out. I think this is a kill. And just like that, we take control of the game. And there's 14 seconds left. I can't believe it. We've actually won this game. And the Ibuki actually contributed in a meaningful way in a tier 10 match. What? It all comes down to decision making and using the strengths that you have over everything else. And I think everyone would agree we did that. So I'm really happy for this. There were definitely mistakes made by both sides, but what really counted when we had the decision available, we took it, and we took it in a way that really didn't give the opponent any other choice. You know, all his teammates are helpless watching as the Bismarck is dying. We're number 2 on the team. The Brindisi beat us out, but I'm happy with the outcome. Hopefully you enjoyed seeing the Ibuki. Take care. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to check out more of my content, you can click the most recent or the most relevant uploads. You could also choose to subscribe to my channel. We do daily World War videos, first impression, how-to, news, and review related. My North American recruit invite is on the screen. You can take advantage of that. I stream at twitch.tv/Notser. Thank you, have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you next time.